Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen of Wednesday, February 13th to order. We are honored this evening to have two of our state legislators with us. I have a little bit of an intro. We have with us tonight our invited guests, State Senator James Maroney and State Senator George Logan. Representative Themis Clarides was here earlier to meet with me, but had to leave for another event, but she sends her regards, and we had a nice conversation with her as well. Before I ask the senators to come up and sit at our table, and while you're doing, come on up, right there. And while you're doing that, I will just comment briefly regarding some legislative initiatives that we're following closely here in Woodbridge. Proposed bills have been filed, and the initial step in consideration of the General Assembly on a variety of topics, among them HB 6344 and HB 6345. We discussed this with the senators and with Representative Clarides before this evening's meeting regarding relief from the cost of towns for the publication of legal ads, which I discussed with you guys during our department budget presentations. Senate Bill 431 regarding car tax and property tax reform, and there's a bunch of them. SB 454, SB 457, SB 572, SB 738, House Bill 5980, and House Bill 6828, all regarding school consolidation, cost sharing, and other education funding issues. Last Friday, at my request, I met with Bethany First Selectman Derry Gorski and Orange First Selectman Jim Zioli here at Town Hall to discuss these proposed school consolidation bills and how they may impact our towns and our Amity regional schools. We will continue to stay in touch on this topic. I'm tracking bills on all the subjects mentioned and will look for opportunities to offer testimony when I believe sharing my perspective as Woodbridge First Selectman will assist the General Assembly in better understanding the needs of Woodbridge as they create new laws for our state. I've already submitted testimony to the Environmental Committee, which held a public hearing February 4th on proposed bill SB 753 to create a statewide ban on fracking waste similar to the ordinance we passed here in Woodbridge last year. With that as background, I'll ask Senator James Maroney to speak first, as he's the new kid on the block. Sorry. That's okay with you, George?
Absolutely.
Representing the southern portion of Woodbridge in Senate District 14, correct?
Yes. Thank
Thanks.
you very much,
Well-
First Selectman Heller.
You're welcome.
I'm very honored to be here and very honored to be able to represent Woodbridge in Hartford and work with Senator Logan. One of the things, I guess, of concern to everyone is the governor's budget and how that will look. Right now, everything that's been released, they're talking points, and so we're not sure how the budget will look. It'll be released February 20th, and then we'll both be keeping a close eye on that to make sure it doesn't adversely impact Woodbridge. We discussed this earlier. We thought we'd let you know the committees we're on. I'm on 7 committees at this time, so I am the chair of Veterans, the chair of Aging, the vice chair of Human Services, ranking member on Regulations Review, and then I'm on Higher Education, Finance, and GAE, which is an elections committee. And I think as everyone in Woodbridge is, we're both carefully watching the school regionalization bills, and I think they're intended to start a discussion, which they definitely have. Some of these bills have started a discussion, but really Orange, Woodbridge, and Bethany are a great example of what regionalization can accomplish, and in no way do we want to break up successful regionalized districts. So with that, I'll turn it over to Senator Logan.
And Senator Logan represents the northern portion of Woodbridge in Senate District 17,
That is
correct?
correct.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, I got to tell you, 7 committees is a tremendous workload in the Capitol. I tell you, the last session I think I was on 5, but 7 is incredible. I saw him earlier, Senator Maroney earlier today, running in and out from various committees. I'm on the Finance Committee. And he still found time to get to his son's basketball game before coming here today. So he is definitely a trooper. So I'll just start with the committees that I'm serving on. I'm on the Veterans Committee. I'm ranking member on Human Services Committee as well. I'm also on Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee, and I'm also on Regulations Review. One of the bills that was mentioned was in terms of the ads and the cost of those ads. And there's a bill out there to provide some relief for some of our communities. And you mentioned that you mentioned one particular ad. It costs almost $1,000. I've heard about committees and groups rescheduling their meeting dates because of the timing of when newspapers are available to place these ads. That is an issue. The last couple sessions, I was co-chair of Planning and Development, and that very bill showed up on both sessions, and it didn't make it to the finish line. So it's definitely going to take a fight to get it over the finish line. We talked about one thing that would be very helpful is that if we can get a number of different town CEOs to come and testify in favor of that bill, and I will testify in favor of that bill as well and do all I can to help move that forward as well.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you in our pre-meeting tonight, I brought it up at COG 2 weeks ago, and they were all interested. So if you keep me informed,
Absolutely.
we'll just take a ride and do what we have to do.
We do.
So-
And made a note earlier of the priority bills for the town,
Right.
and you're tracking them. I will be tracking them as well, and we'll work together to try to, be successful in as many of them as we can. As far as the sort of atmosphere, the tenor in Hartford now, we are in a period. There's a lot going on. Committees are meeting. We're screening bills. We're having public hearings on a variety of topic of bills. But the big major item, the whole purpose of this session is to come up with a budget, right, and a 2-year budget. And the governor throws out the first lobby of that his proposed budget, and everybody kind of works from there. So everyone's waiting with bated breath for that. But leading up to that, you can take a look at the types of bills that are being proposed by different legislators, right? So there's the forced school consolidation plan that I have. No one in the district that I represent in 7 towns likes it. I am fully in favor of regionalization. We need to regionalize here as much as possible when it comes to our education, Board of Educations, and their roles, and also town or city governments as well. However, I think it needs to be controlled locally and not by the state. I believe that the state government has a role in terms of providing incentives for communities to regionalize. What type of incentives? Well, there's limited funding available. So if towns regionalize on their own, they'll have access to more state funding, for example, than if they go it alone. But forced regionalization is forced consolidation, particularly of our school systems, is a problem. You look at the proposal that's out there now. The most prominent one has a map. It shows a map of the state, and it's based on the probation court map, district maps, right? Which is a problem. For example, that map would break up the Amity school district that we have now, a very successful school district, one that I think is a model for other communities in the state and the nation, I think, in my opinion, to follow. And it would take Woodbridge, and it would actually consolidate Woodbridge with Ansonia and Derby. All 3 are towns that I represent. However, Woodbridge is not in the valley. Ansonia and Derby don't have a natural link with one another. So that kind of randomness is problematic. So here in Connecticut, it's going to be tough for someone from the state or a group from the state to tell the communities how to regionalize. So that is why we have to work hard at the local level to see what the writing on the wall is here, right? We need to regionalize. Woodbridge is in the forefront of that. I will be opposing that particular bill as written, but it is definitely a sign to communities that we need to do more in terms of regionalization because the state is in a financial crisis. We have to save money. You look at other parts of the country, and you have school districts that are single school districts that are 2, 3, 4, 5 times the size of the state of Connecticut. Yet we have approximately, don't quote me on this, but approximately 151 school boards here in Connecticut, and that has to change. There's also, I'm hearing a lot from constituents and folks in terms of the statewide, an additional tax on your cars, on property. Again, with the state taxing the communities, collecting that money, and then returning it back to you. I'm of the sense or the feeling that we have gone down this tax and spend policy for too long, and it hasn't been working. So I am reluctant to sign on to big tax increases. I think it's having a negative effect on our economy here. So I'm anxiously waiting to see the Governor Ned Lamont's budget. My guess is there are going to be a lot of folks that are unhappy with it. Hopefully, it's equal across the board because we have to make
Right.
some tight, tough decisions. I'm sure there'll be some component of taxes on there, but there's also going to be some, I think, opportunities for saving, and we have to be more efficient and effective in the way that we run our government from the state level.
Thank you. Any of the selectmen have any questions or comments for our senators? Well, thank you for coming.
Thank
I know you have
you.
to be in Bethany next. You're
Yes,
a
yes.
busy
I'm doing
guy, so.
I do an hour every month
Oh.
in Bethany at the library.
Yeah,
for
so
folks
I
who
think
want
you're okay.
to- Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for meeting with me and also coming to our meeting this evening.
Sure, and thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. I'm willing
Thank
to come
you.
down with an update anytime you all
Keep
want.
us informed anytime, and I'll
Absolutely.
keep my board informed, so it's all
Great.
good.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, okay, bye. Now we'll move on to item 2, Woodbridge Board of Education, Superintendent Robert Gilbert. I just got it.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I'm not going to be quite as. I don't have as much information as George has, but I'll do the best I can. So it's good to hear from both of you. Good to see you again, and just have a short report this evening. And if any questions you have, I'll be glad to answer those. Our enrollment, as I talk about each month, continues to stand strong at 846 students. We've been staying pretty constant so far through the first half of the year. I would like to thank you as I reflect back on the last few weeks. Thanks for the opportunity to present my operating budget to all of you, as well as the Board of Finance members in this room. I did send on, in the last week or so, some additional information. I resent the demographic study, as well as the state data 6-year enrollment trends report that is helpful to know. And I think one of you, Mika, it might have been you, who had kind of reflected on hearing some information about where Woodbridge stands in the state in terms of enrollment growth, and that 6-year data enrollment trend report does show that if after you take out all the magnet and charter schools, Beecher Woodbridge School District is the second highest 6-year rolling average or percentage of growth in the state, next to New London as being the first. So, so that was right on the money, and hopefully that information is helpful to you. I am going to send some additional information that was requested. I'll be sending that in the next few days, and also I may send some additional information as I do attend some other superintendent meetings throughout the state. Have certainly come in contact with a lot of superintendents, both of small and large districts, but every situation, every town is different, every year is different, every context is different, but I have run into many superintendents with budget increase requests that are very similar to mine. And I'll pass that information on to Beth and Tony, just for your information. And what I did find interesting was the districts that did speak about that to me are districts that do not have an increasing enrollment. Their enrollment is either flat or declining. So again, I want to thank you for the very honest conversation we had a few weeks ago, listening to what I was advocating for, and also certainly understanding the context of the many constituents in town that have thoughts about tax increases and things like that. It's obviously a very transparent and an honest conversation, and I appreciate it. Looking at our current budget for the fiscal year 2019, our February finance meeting is still a few weeks off, but as reported in our January finance subcommittee meeting, our special education deficit, which, as I've mentioned before, is certainly fluid and sometimes even volatile, did go up from $99K to $146K. Due to changes, again, in some student programs, out-of-district programs, transportation changes to students' programs that are referred to as IEPs, that are mandated legal documents. So we do note that deficit did go up as of the last meeting. Our overall deficit for the district stands at $251K, up from $217 the prior month. Just to be reminded, included in the 251 is $129,000 of some of the facility items, including the Van Zelm study, the August cleaning from the humidity issues, as well as the costs associated with the pool, as well as the cleaning of the pool area. Those total $129,000 of the 251, and also included in that 251 is the $50,000 reduction from last May's town meeting. Some of the things that offset some of the costs have been some favorable health census changes, where people's changes from family plans to two-person or to one-person plans. In terms of facilities update, our building ad hoc committee has not had a formal meeting since I was last here. We're hoping to have one very soon. In Board of Education news, our policy subcommittee has restarted their work. We recently went through a policy audit by CABE, and so that policy audit is allowing us to now move forward and update our policy online manual with new policies and revisions to things that are already there. Our curriculum subcommittee met last month and heard information about our STEAM program. STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, the Arts, and Math. And this month, our curriculum committee meeting will feature a review of our technology program. We did have a recent board meeting where we did have a discussion about space at Beecher Road School in light of our growing enrollment, and so we had just a sort of an exchange of ideas and thoughts, and we certainly have inquired also with our BOA sister districts. Not that it would be easy to use other people's space, but the common consensus in asking our sister districts was that there was no available space for us to use for our purposes if we were even going to try to do that for an entire grade level, such as 6 classes or so. So we have been starting to look at that and starting to strategize about how we use the space we have with a growing enrollment and increasing numbers of classes. In our student news, I'm very proud to say that our Math Counts team, which has been guided by Andrea Fleischman, one of our parents, recently participated in an area event at Yale a few weeks ago, and they did a great job. Many of their competing teams were middle school teams, but we were very proud of the students, mostly 6th graders and some 5th graders who were part of that great math experience. We hope to have last night the Jump Rope for Heart physical education event for hundreds of our kids and parents, but we have obviously had to postpone it due to the weather, so we'll be holding that at a later date. It was a great event last year, and we're looking to almost double the size this year. Our faculty continues to do a lot of curriculum work this year, especially around the area of math in grades kindergarten and 5th grade. I'd like to thank the PTO also. I've done that a few times, but I'd like to say it in front of you. Our PTO is just a great group of parents. Our executive board does a lot of wonderful things to guide and fundraising, and they have recently funded a new climbing wall in our South Gym that replaces the one that really had kind of fallen apart and was very outdated. And my last item is, believe it or not, as the weather starts to turn, we are getting ready for our summer programming at this point. So hopefully that will come sooner than later, especially in the warm temperatures that we're hoping for. So that's my report, and I'm glad to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, sure.
Zelm report. I know we've been waiting for a while for someone to get together with us. Is that coming, or where does that stand?
So that report is available. So if you haven't already received that, we can get that to you. I can work with Tony and Beth to get that to all of you. We have reviewed that. We reviewed it as early as this past Monday as well with a former contractor, and we are looking. It's my own personal hope, and I know the hope of many, that we can move that the recommendations that are in there to the boards of Selectmen and Finance at a certain point soon, so you can understand it, ask the questions, help us to move that forward. One of the things we're really looking to do is to try to make sure that we can move forward on these recommendations and avert an issue that we had last year, because there's a cost to those kinds of issues if they do happen again, and we want to spend the money in the right way as opposed to cleaning something up. So we'll make sure you have that report.
I think we can get it out to the board. I think we're planning to have the ad hoc committee come up with a final report sometime very soon, and then I'll have that available along them to discuss that, and the board can review it and ask any questions you have, and hopefully we'll have some recommendations going forward, financial as well as
Great.
other recommendations.
Right.
So, yeah, everything